and this is Domain to Profit. I actually want to start things off. This is a unique show, a unique week, because if you're watching this live, that means you're with me Sunday afternoon. If you are watching at 3 p.m. Monday, which is when we typically have shows, you're watching a rebroadcast. So yeah, things are a little funky around here, but join us either way. There's going to be a great community in the chat. But because it's Sunday, it's usually a family day and a day that I get to spend with my family, which means I have a little bit of a special guest. I got my daughter Ruth with me to start. And can anybody guess what color her shirt is? It's like, and no, she's not wearing a Harry Potter cloak of invisibility, although that is what it looks like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you go with Mom, okay?
Okay.
Have a great day, okay? With that said, we're going to talk about some domain names. Expiring domain names is what we do each and every week. It's kind of what I do every single day, is think and figure out how we can take domain names and turn them into businesses, develop them into a way that makes and brings the world value. So you're in the right place. If any of that sounds great, because this is Domain to Profit. I'm Drew Walsh. Make sure you say hi in the chat. If you are here with me or not, just make sure you say hi. Let us know you join, and I will see you just after I managed to click on this.
From domain to profit, from a .com to a business idea. Take a domain name, develop an income from domain to profit. We'll show you how. Domain to profit, from domain to profit. Join Drew Walsh and get started right now.
Oh, I'm such a like a girl dad. It's so much fun. The funny thing is she could probably sit here and chat with us about domain names. Like it's pretty funny. Like she's grown up. Towing.com is like, I think were some of her first words. I'm just always a proud dad. I see Mike is joining us. Nice to have you here. Yeah, nice to have you here with me live. I know you scheduling a lot of times keeps you, so it's nice to have you here today. Stuart, nice to have you as well joining us here. Thank you all for kind of mixing it up and saying hi and joining me on this special broadcast. So this will be going on February 6th, and so things will be a little bit different, but not much, because what remained consistent are domain names in the great community of all of us that come together and look at domain names. It's exciting stuff. Oh my goodness gracious, open heart surgery, but that's a whole other show. Gosh, is that you, Mike? Anyhow, okay, wowzers. You should be checking out chat. Chat is the good stuff. Okay. We are going to kind of get back to a little bit of fundamentals today. I did a live impromptu broadcast last week. I believe it was Thursday. And we looked at domain names, and I kind of evaluated them on the fly. And I've really been developing a heart, especially for those who are domain investors interested in domain names because of the opportunity they provide, and also speak English as their second language. It's been something that I've tried to consider in everything that I've done, but especially as I've looked and talked to more and more of you, I've realized this is it's possibly the biggest plague that hits domain investors. And those of you that are out there that do not speak English as a primary language, you are at a significant disadvantage when it comes to domain names. And much of what we do here, every single Monday, I try to show a way to look at domain names that is different from what you're probably seeing out on Twitter. The way that we evaluate domain names is very much with the end use in mind. What would go on this? How would it generate a revenue? How would it be used? Thinking about domain names with the end in mind is an important piece of that domain name. And it's the only way that I buy domain names is if I can think about maybe sometimes it's a cute use. Other times it would be a huge endeavor to take on the project. But a lot of times I sit in that main area, which is find a domain name that represents an industry and put what I call internet marketing as a service, IMaaS. It's the business model we use on towing.com. I try to buy domain names that focus on that. With that said, I've been at this for a really long time, 20 years, in fact. I've been getting domain names for more than just that first personal web page. I got my first domain name in 1999, but in 2001, 2003, that time period is when I started to get domain names for more than just because it was like, you know how it starts off. You get that first domain name because you had some idea. It probably was a bad idea and a bad domain name. For me, that was something called Value by Web. But I started to figure it out a little bit more, especially in that 2003 timeframe. And then 2005 is when I really got involved in auctions. So I've been around domain names for a long time. And I come to you talking about domain names not as somebody who has figured it all out, but instead I am in the process of figuring it all out. Now I'm 20 years in, I've learned a lot of lessons that if you're 1, 2, 3, 5, even 10 years into things, a lot of what I can tell you can save you a lot of money, because the lessons that I've learned and that I share with you here each and every week, I pay to learn these lessons. I experiment and purposefully put myself out there, put my money out there to experiment and try things so that way I can reap the benefits of the successes as well as learn when something I try fails. So, make sense? Yeah. Somebody's saying domains are the gateway drug. Yes. Yeah, they like that first domain name it's a gateway drug. It's it's what can get you started on things. So, well, it is about that time. So what I want to do, first of all, is I want to take us start to finish through expireddomains.net. Expireddomains.net. You see this on Domain to Profit at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Monday, and we look through domain names using expireddomains.net. And I want to set up the filters and talk about some of the different filters and tools that are available to you for free through expireddomains.net. It's a free tool. I use it free. I don't pay anything. I don't know the owner. There's nothing going on with it. It's just a great tool. How do they make money? They make money when you click a link and then buy that domain name. So they only make money when you support them by clicking the links. It costs you nothing. So expireddomains.net, and up at the top there will be an option for you to create a free account. Do that. You should create a free account. Once you do, you can set your background to a dark background like this if you choose to. I just like it. I like it. So I use a dark background. You can use the white one like many others do. Now, once you're logged in, you will see much of what you see when you're not logged in. However, by having a free user account, that is when you get to use filters. And we use filters every single week here. It allows us to go from many hundreds of thousands of domain names, hundreds of thousands of domain names, down to less than 100,000 of the domain names that give us the best chance of finding a successful domain name, usually about 100,000 or less. Still a lot of domain names to go through. Now, what domain names are we looking at? These domain names are domain names that are expiring. So we know a few things about them. One, the past owner of the domain names we look at when we look at expired domains, they're letting that domain name go. Why are they letting it go? It's hard to say. Sometimes it's a mistake. Sometimes they forgot about it. Other times they choose to let that domain name go, which is by far the most common reason for these domain names to show up on this list, is the previous owner gave up or decided that domain name did not matter to them. So I think that's an important thing to think about, because when you are looking at expiring domain names, yes, it is like an Easter egg hunt, or it is a treasure hunt where you are looking for a great opportunity. But you have to remember, you're kind of digging through the garbage. And the vast majority of the domain names you will see today, and anytime you're on the site, should not be registered. They should not be thought of as a good domain name. And that will even if the value of the domain name is shown to be something right. That does not mean the domain name is valuable. Remember, this is discarded or expired trash. It didn't matter to the other person enough to have a plan in place. Approach these domains with that view, and you're in a really good place to start. Now the question is, as we look through the garbage, as we look through the rubbish, the trash, are there great domain names in here that provide opportunity for you and me? Well, hopefully we'll find out. So when you're on expireddomains.net, we start off and spend most of our time under that middle tab there, Marketplace Domains. And when you click on that, it's going to open up these various links for different places that you can buy domain names in the aftermarket. So somebody maybe owns them and is selling them, or the domain name was expired, it dropped, and then is picked up for auction. You'll find places like Dropcatch, which they grab domain names as they expire, a few others. We spend most of our time on the GoDaddy tab. GoDaddy is the largest registrar out there. They have a lot of domain names, which means the most domain names expiring happen at GoDaddy. So for this show, we look at GoDaddy, and then we look specifically at the expired domain name list. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. If you are getting into domain names, look at the other lists. Learn about the other lists. Learn about the other opportunities for buying domain names. Not all of them are going to be the same process as this, which we will look through domain names and decide on whether we want to get involved in an auction and the highest bidder wins. There's other different opportunities out there to buy and so on. But for the sake of this, we are going to filter down these domain names to the domain names that give us the best opportunity to find that treasure. So as of right now, we clicked on that domain, the GoDaddy expiring domain list, and it has 482,000 domain names are going to be expiring. Here on Domain to Profit, we go through maybe 200 to 400 domain names. So realistically, that's too many. So we got to filter it down. And when you look at this list, you're going to see a lot of domain names that are odd. They're just odd domain names. A lot of letters, numbers, things that don't make sense. Hey, people have various dreams. Like I said, my first domain name that I ever registered is something I would not hand register nowadays. It very well could end up on this list, except for I keep it because I sentimental reasons. So let's talk about filters. We want to filter the hundreds of thousands of domain names here down to the ones that give us the best opportunity to find great domain names. And that's what we're going to do now. And it's going to start by, over my shoulder here, there is this little link for Show Filter. See that there? Show Filters. And suddenly what was just a list of domain names opens up into a complex, it looks complex, all kinds of different ways to filter out those 400-some thousand domain names. And this is where my experience especially comes in handy, because the domain names we're going to talk about, we get to filter out quite a bit. So these filters are based on Drew's experience. Play with them as you wish, but just know, like, there is a reason for the filters we use here. Let me start with the simple ones. Right here, we want to get rid of no numbers. Numbers, they can be in some domain names, but they create lots of complications that I would recommend only for the most advanced domainers. I do not own any domain names that include numbers. None. None. I don't mess with numbers. They're not my thing, and they are not the kind of domain name I look for on Domain to Profit. So I just get rid of numbers. I don't want any numbers in my domain name. Same with hyphens. Can you find great hyphenated domain names? Probably not. In my opinion, probably not. I own, I think, one great hyphenated domain name, and that is heavy-duty. And that is because I own heavyduty.com, and sometimes it's hyphenated. So I just own both. But the only reason that domain name matters to me is because I own the non-hyphenated version. So hyphens, people disagree on me on this. But ultimately, we can look at why, and I talk about why hyphens can go away in other shows. Just know we get rid of hyphens for the sake of this show. So that brings us to some of the other filters. We've gotten rid of numbers, we've gotten rid of hyphens, and as of this point, we want to try to bring up the languages here. For the sake of Domain to Profit, and for me personally, I speak English, and it's the only language I know and consider myself an expert in. You can look at other languages as you see fit. Most domain name sales that are, if your goal is to sell a domain name, you're looking for English domain names most of the time. By far, it's like 99.99, maybe even another 9% of the time, English is going to be the primary language of the domain name. Now, we also want to limit it to 1 to 3 words. So that's what I just put in here. 1 to 3 words is what I'm saying. That happens because a lot of people they want to go to a 4th word, but the 4th word statistically just complicates everything. Most searches happen with 3 or less words. So once you add in the 4th word, it really messes with the quality of that domain name. For experience sake, keep your searches down to 3 or less words. I recommend 2. There's lots of great 2-word domain names. And then finally, over here behind me, there is going to be an option for to choose the number of days that the domain name is there. So we want to end this in 8 days. And that's just because it's a weekly show. We want to make sure that we only show domain names over the course of the next week. And I will also say this. Most domain names, a lot of domain names show up on this list at 9 days or 8 days out, and they get renewed before they actually complete the auction. So the longer you look, the more likely you're to see domain names that are going to disappear before the actual auction ends. Why put yourself through that excitement and, yeah, I'm excited about this domain name. Oh, the domain name's gone. I'm excited about this domain name. Oh, the domain name's gone. Don't do that to yourself. Life's already too hard. So we're going to click next on the additional tab up here. And here on Domain to Profit, we use and only look here at the .com domain names. There are many people out there that will tell you to use other domain names, include other, can you build on any of these other domain name extensions? Absolutely. But if you are looking for an investable domain name, something that you could build on that already has value potentially, that will increase in value as you build, it's going to need to be on a .com. So I'm it's not because I really care all that much about any extension. I just want to go where the evidence has shown me to go. I want to go where evidence has proven it. There's a quote that I shared a while back, and that is, you want to evaluate reality as it is, not as you wish it would be. And I will tell you, if you live out that quote, you need to make sure you are looking at .com domain names only. Can you make money off other domains? Sure, but the evidence says it's way, way less likely. That is why .coms are the main domain name. Any other extension, you should expect it to be a long time before you ever have a chance at making money off of it. So for Domain to Profit, we look at .com. Now, there are many other great search features and filter features that you can use, including all the different keyword tools over on the far side. I use those to look for specific keywords because these lists are long, and I want to make sure I find domains in my area of expertise. So a lot of times I will use those keyword domains, which we do on the show occasionally. But today, just know those over there exist. They matter, as do some of the other filters and so on. But for the sake of domain to profit, 1 to 3 English words, .com only, get rid of numbers, get rid of hyphens, and then we look over the course of the next 8 days, which will be over the course of through next week's show. There you go. Those are the filters we use on domain to profit, and now it's time to apply those filters. And let's see what we get. Okay, that took us from 400,000 domain names down to 114,000, which we're not going to get to that many domain names, but we will get started for sure. Now that we're looking at this list of domain names that have been filtered using the filters we use, we need to order this list. Like, how do we what determines what shows up on top? This is when this behind me here, the valuation column comes into effect. The valuation column there is a number that's provided by GoDaddy. It's not always available. We order by valuation by clicking on the top of that list, and it brings all the domain names and orders them by the one that GoDaddy considers most valuable on top. So as of right now, $16,500 is what it says that top domain name is worth. But the valuation is not the value of the domain name. Say that like 100 times because you have to 100% believe and know that it is true. The valuation does not represent the value of the domain name. The valuation does not represent the value of the domain name. It doesn't come anywhere close to representing the value of the domain name. What it does is just helps you order the domain names. It helps you see whether this domain name is ordered above another domain name, possibly in how much it's worth. Now, they only might be worth a penny, and this one worth 2 pennies, and so on and so forth. Don't use value as an indicator of anything more than a comparison of domain names to help you see them in a list. Anything more than that, and you are going to waste money, because you'll find out as we look through this list, GoDaddy thinks these domain names that they sell for $10 a year are worth way more. Now, why is that? Why would GoDaddy, the place that you pay for domain names, why would they think they're worth more than $10? Might have something to do with the fact that they want you to register them. They want you to hold on to them. They maybe, possibly, want your money. Yeah, I think that's pretty safe, right? Like, so watch out with the valuation. In most cases, you'll find that it's just way off, way off. Like, let's, for example, look at this. Now we're going to look to the list. Here you go. Alarmas.com is the one that they are saying is worth $16,000. If you are a domain name novice, what we do here on Domain to Profit is show you how you can check these numbers yourself. Now, what formula I use should not be what you use, but it will give you a process to determine how you price a domain name yourself. A lot of people will choose to go off a script and just go with their gut. Make sure your gut is developed through experience of buying and selling domain names, not just buying or seeing other people buy and sell. You can use other people's data as an aggregate, don't use one piece of data. So let me just talk about that one more second and just say, I see a lot of people that will see a domain name. There was a gambling domain name with bet in the name that sold for big money, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it wasn't even a great one. It was like Go Bet or something like that. And then what happened was lots of people saw that bet was in a domain name, so they went out and registered a bunch of domain names and thought they were worth tens of thousands of dollars. In most cases, the GoDaddy appraisals are saying like, hey, they're worth $2,000. They weren't worth registering, and many people were chasing this idea that their domain name was also going to be worth hundreds of thousands, and they lost a lot of money. This is very common. That's why you can't just look at one domain success, a domain name that sold for a lot of money, and think that you can duplicate that. That was a one in a, like, it happened, okay? Like, just let it go. Congratulate the buyer and seller and move on. Now, if you see a pattern of domain names that are selling, then that's a little different. That's why bio is something that we talk about here on the show occasionally. That is where a lot of sales are recorded, is at name bio. That's where you look at that aggregate data, the macro data, that data that is of all the keywords, of all the domain names selling. And that's also why you can go and find your evidence on why .com is the only domain name you should be buying if you're looking to buy and sell, especially. So otherwise, you're going to be you're going to be wasting a lot of money in hold time, especially if you're starting off. Okay, alarm as is that first domain name here. My gut tells me that domain name is going to be like, I don't even think I would register. I don't even think I would hand register alarm as. But let's go check it out because it's on top and GoDaddy is saying it's worth $16,000. Well, first of all, this is one of the things that happens occasionally, especially when you're looking at domain names in advance. They get renewed and they no longer are available at auction. So we're going to take it back. Let's look at but I would still want to look at the domain name. But it's no longer available, which I think is even a better reason to look at it. So this domain name is supposed to end tomorrow. It had a bid of 1,000. Let's use our process to look at whether this domain name is worth anything. To do that, here's the process we go through. To evaluate a domain name, we need to look at more than just our gut. We need to look at data. How do we get data? How do we know whether a domain name is good or bad or somewhere in the middle? Well, we need to find data. Otherwise, our brain and heart will see a domain name, possibly fall in love with it, and we will waste our money getting that domain name, and the only person in the world that loves it might be you. So we have to make sure we're finding domain names that others love. And how do you find out if they love it? Well, we can use data from a site like this, which is spyfoo.com. Spyfoo we use every single Monday on Domain to Profit. And here's how we use it. We place our domain name into the box. We get rid of the .com. Because we're using .com, we don't care about the extension. We're going to look at it as a keyword. That is a benefit you get only with .coms. If you are not using a .com domain name, this is going to be a really bad way to evaluate a domain name. Might be helpful, might not be helpful, but if it's a .com, it is helpful. So there you go. Then we space out the domain name as keywords. Now, you do have to pay attention, and this is one of the ways that it's important to be English or have an expertise over the language of English. Some cases, this might get its value from being a single word keyword. I don't know if that's the case, but let's go find out. One of the ways you can tell is just to do a Google search, which that may be what is giving this its domain name or its value. Alarma is a call to arms in preparation against an approaching enemy, by extension of warning and danger, psychology. Like, I don't necessarily. It looks like it's maybe in Catalan, Romania, Spanish. Basically, it may be alarmas. So this might be more of a foreign language domain name. Might be why it's getting its value. Maybe, maybe not. But for the way it's in here is as alarm as. Well, let's check out both ways, actually. So I'm going to look at it with this way just to find out. So as one word, So what we did is I took the space out. So we're looking at it as a single word. And yes, this does appear to be like especially Spanish. Looks like alarma. So this is more of a Spanish domain name, even though we're looking for English, but that's where it's probably getting its value from. But 135 searches over there. And let's see what happens if we search in like Mexico, because I see some Mexico. I don't usually do this, but I just kind of want to see. So yeah, so here's where the value's coming from. I'm getting a little advanced here. I don't usually do this on the show, but because this domain name was valued up at the top, I want to make sure that we're seeing why. What's the why behind the number? What's the why behind the value? So I changed it to look at Spanish from a Mexican perspective, did a search, and now there's 3,500 searches for alarmas over there. So it's 3,500 times people type it in as alarmas. And I could be saying it wrong. Again, I speak English. The singular is 41,000. And so far, so I would keep this as alarmas versus alarm as. But let's go check out real quick. This example this is a really bad example for showing off how to judge a keyword. But we're just checking it out. So this is the way it was presented. So there's a warning for you is sometimes the way it's presented, it had a capital A as alarm as capital A. That can be deceiving at times. So you have to kind of know when you can move around letters. Doesn't that sound advanced? It is advanced. Like I was ready to pass on this domain name. I'm still going to pass on it. But I was looking at it like this. If I would have typed it in like this, I would have been like, why is it worth anything at all? Actually, let me go look at English, go back to US English and see if it's anything. Yeah, again, 20. So, well, I'm going to move on from this domain name, but now we're starting to see some data. And as we go on to the next domain names, we will see more data that will give us an idea of how we can look at these domain names from a data perspective. So moving on from the 16,000, is it worth $16,000? No, in my opinion, it's not worth $16,000, especially even off of a few thousand searches in Spanish. Filmcrew.com, that seems pretty good. It seems rather niche. GoDaddy's saying it's worth $11,000. In that case, it could be. I'm not going to dive into that one just because I don't know how you would monetize it. I mean, I guess maybe a directory or a searchable database of like film crews you can hire. Would that be a thing? I don't know. Film crew. Maybe we'll come back to it. Let's continue on. Well, let's click on it. Let's see what happens when we click on it. Let's dive into this domain name, shall we? I kind of don't want to, but I think it's going to be a good illustration. Filmcrew.com, currently 1161 as of today. That is going to end in 4 days or 3 days from when you may be seeing this on Monday. So what we want to do here is exactly what we just did for the other domain name. We want to grab Film Crew. We don't need the .com. We only need Film Crew. Then we're going to paste that into SpyFu. And then we want to space it out as keywords. The domain name is filmcrew.com. We take the .com, toss it off, and now we want to look at film space crew. So this is looking at it as keywords. And when we do that, it pulls up this data. This data is keyword data that is provided from Google. So Google's pulling together this keyword data, and then things like this here comes from SpyFu running that data through evaluating how much traffic, how many searches are potentially available for the owner of this keyword, somebody that's pursuing this keyword. 2,000 monthly volume is what they're saying. So not bad, 2,000 people, 2,000 searches. So if you own this domain name, 2,000 people a month are typing Film Crew into a search engine. You can use this domain name to target those people, to create content for those people. Now, the main factor that we look at when we evaluate a domain name, that number up there matters a lot. How many monthly keyword searches are happening for this domain name? The next most important piece is the actual money, though. And that is found by scrolling down underneath there. This is more that Google data provided, or Google provided data. And this shows us what people are paying per click in Google Ads. So how many people are searching for it, how much money is being spent. So what we want to see is this number here is the cost per click. So when people are advertising, they're paying on average $1.50 to advertise for this keyword. The key thing is, if you look at this here, there are zero advertisers are actually paying that. So that means it's more of an on and off. Sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't. As of the point of this data, they were not paying. That seems like we don't want to bother with that. Okay, so this domain name, what we know about it from this data is, hey, it's a .com domain name. Film crew is a word set that sounds familiar to me, but hey, let's not go with my thoughts or what sounds familiar to me. Let's go with what is actually being searched sometimes on Google. 2,000 times it's being searched. That is helpful to know. But there's not money there. There's not a market there. So now this is mostly going to be pretty good for like maybe a blog, or somebody that's passionate about film or wants to sell a class about running a film crew. Maybe. One of the final things we want to do when we're looking at a domain name is we highlight the keywords and we do a Control F in our browser. What that is doing is it's showing the keyword, where that keyword appears on the page. All these little yellow, that is because that's where film crew, the keyword that's part of our domain name, filmcrew.com, it appears all these places. It doesn't usually do this. This is actually a pretty good domain name when it comes to being used in other ways. This is something we like to see, especially this here. I like seeing this. Let me get that over here. See this here, film crew jobs near me. One, we have film crew jobs. So now this is looking at a jobs board is one of the common ways to develop a domain name. I don't like the business model all that much, but it is something that people are searching for. They can either go out onto a general job board and post on Indeed, or if this is a niche space, right? There's not too many people doing film crews and film crew jobs and hiring and so on. You can target these keywords. So 900 people are searching for film crew jobs near me. Now you can build a job board that helps people that are hiring film crew jobs and placing them with people that are looking to be on a film crew. 900 times a month though, so that's not a whole lot, but it is something. You can, if you're passionate about movies, passionate about filming and so on, this might be a fun domain name to pursue just because it's in your love area, your area that you love. But that would probably be the only reason I would pursue that domain name. So filmcrew.com, because there's no money behind it, as a developer, I'm not necessarily interested in that domain name. And I would recommend you not be interested unless you have a way to monetize it. Remember, think about the end in mind, right? Think about the end in mind. In this case, I can come up with an end, but I don't necessarily have a way to get to the money piece of it. And since we're going to have to pay at least $1,100 for it, well, we're going to skip over it. You can do it. You can make money off any domain name. In this case, we're going to skip over that. Okay, let me zoom in. Downrange, contact now. That could be a pretty good domain name, contact now. I'm going to skip over it. Open mobile. So as we look down through these lists, when you're joining me live, if you see one that you love, and that I'm skipping over, you can mention it into the chat. You cannot type a full domain name, by the way. It will filter it. You have to space it out because it will not allow, YouTube does not allow domain names to be posted into the chat. But I get it. Like if you just say contactnow.com and just spell out dot or something, like we get it. We're looking at domain, understand it. Skipping over contact now. Bar tap. I don't know if you can see that down in the bottom. Let me scroll down a little. Now to the top. Bar tap, not a bad one. Bar tab would be a good one, but it's not there. As new, I like as new. It's as new. It's like new is more common, I think. So let's check it out though. Asnew.com. I guess this one could be one of those ones that maybe it's its own word as well. If you're looking at that on Monday, there's going to be 6 days left on this auction. If you're with me right now, there's 7 days left on it. And now we're going to go over to SpyFu. Now, it's unusual for me to do this, but I'm going to look it up as new as a single word just to see. And no, nothing really happening there. But I do believe there's going to be some keyword volume as new. Okay, maybe not. I guess as is the way to do it. So 44 monthly searches are what appears there. Not really much happening for it. That means it's probably a domain name worth passing on. How would you use it? I don't know. I don't know how I would do it. So yeah, we'll skip over it. It happens all the time. That's why I look at the data. Otherwise, if you're like, oh, as new, that's 5 characters. That's a nice short domain name. Maybe it's worth something. Maybe, or maybe it's not. So band music, let's go check that one out. That one sounds like, I'm guessing that has search volume. Ends in 5 days from right now, 4 days from when you're watching this on Monday. $60 is the amount and currently, and this one will go higher. I can pretty much guarantee that because, well, we'll find out right here once we add in the data. Bandmusic.com, we're doing a search for it. And again, we're on SpyFu. We dropped the .com. We put the keywords in as they are. So band music. And now we have some keyword volume. 1,900 searches for band music. What are they looking for? I'm not entirely sure. Let's go find out. So that's where we can do the highlight the words, do a Control F, and do a search for that band music. Now we have the places where band music as a keyword set shows up, and you'll see here, big band music, 3,600 searches for it. You can target that keyword, band music, marching band music, 40s big band music, college band music, PDFs. What is big band music? Is a question that's being asked over here. So there you go. Now the question is there money? Is there money? Otherwise, it's just going to be for people that are music passionate, which is kind of me. I've bought some domain names for music just because I love music. But here you go. Cost per click, 82 cents. I like the cost per click and the domain names I purchase to be $2 or more. That is really what gets my attention. $2 or more, it has my attention even if I don't like the domain name, especially if it has part 2, which is advertisers here. This domain name has 0 advertisers currently. That's not very good. It's actually as bad as it gets. We want to see 10 or more advertisers. So you can kind of see like, okay, this domain name is a pretty good domain name. It has keyword volume, but there's no money being spent. There's no advertisers. And Drew's telling me that a good domain name will have like a domain name that he would love would be $2 or more per click and 10 advertisers or more. That's just a pretty good gauge to know, like, hey, if Drew's interested in this, then maybe I can pay attention to domains like that. I do not buy all the domain names that have $2 or more and advertisers 10 or more. I don't look for them and buy them with that same criteria. But if it gets your attention, that's a good thing. That's helpful information to know. I don't buy them assuming I'm going to buy them. They get my attention. Now that they have your attention, you have to think about, is this an industry you're interested in? Do you even want to develop this domain name? Because if not, if you're possibly not the person to develop it for the end purpose, whether it's to make a profit or just because you love an industry, then watch out about buying a domain name. Because essentially, if you're not interested in it, you're going to be buying it just to sell it. And in that case, you're going to be limited in who's going to buy it. So I tend to stay in industries I'm passionate about. So band music is definitely getting added to my watch list. I like that domain name. What would I spend on it? It is not based on the numbers. I will easily put $600 on the domain name, but I will probably go higher than that, probably even up to $800. How do I get that number? That is just like my gut is telling me 20 years of experience, especially like 10 really diving into the data of domain names. And I know that it is worth more than $1,000. So if I buy it less than $1,000, if I get around to developing it, then that's great. That's fun. But if I don't, I should have room to sell it. Chances are it's going to go for more than what I would pay for it, though. We'll see. Partly it's just the market, right? It's just I think it needs to go for $1,000 or more to be like valued well. So I will go up to $800 or so, and hopefully somebody outbids me. But if not, I'm okay having it at $800. Hopefully it's worth something more to somebody else. It's a good way to, just so you know, that is a good way to look at any domain name. You can value any domain name you want. And let me pull up myself here as for this. You can value any domain name in a bunch of different ways. And you should. This is really good practice. There is your price. What would you pay for this domain name? Every single one of these domain names, you should be thinking, what would I pay for this domain name? Like, what would I pay for it right now? Then you could also think about, what is it worth to someone else? That's where you start to get tricky. That's where experience comes in. Band music, for example, who would we sell it to? I'm not sure. I'm guessing we can maybe a sheet music company, just people that are passionate about it might pay to be involved in it. I think that $1,000 or more is going to be that's a pretty low number. Selling for $1,000 for a domain name that has thousands of searches, it's pretty likely, but you can't count on it. So I'm willing to say, hey, $600 to $800, if I get it, then no problem. I like that domain name. That's my price. But $1,000 is what I think somebody else would pay for it. Now, an end user, somebody that's passionate about band music and is going to develop this out for their business purposes, they will probably pay $5,000 or more. But there's probably only one or two of those people in the world. And if you buy this for $800 or $1,000 and you're like, I will make $5,000 off of it, you have to work and play the long game to get the attention of those people and make sure that one or two people see the domain name and buy the domain name. And the mistake that a lot of people think is like, oh, I'm going to sell it for $30,000 or something. You can't think it. It's a market. It's a market. There's not a lot of people out there paying thousands for domain names, even if we think they're worth it. So, question in chat from Mike is asking, what did I mean? What does monthly cost mean? Oh, I believe you're talking about on SpyFu monthly cost. I have no idea what monthly cost means back here on the Google provided data. I don't know. I'm guessing that means if you were to target this keyword, what would it cost you to get the clicks associated with it at that cost per click or something like that? Maybe they're trying to estimate a monthly budget for you. I'm guessing that's what that is. You'd have to actually, no, it doesn't. I was going to say maybe they have a little question mark that will show you, but they don't have one. So. Okay, moving on. So far, I love band music. Did I add it to my watch list? Yes, I did. lintremover.com. That's a thing. Now, raise your hand if you're passionate about lint removal. Yeah, no, not too many people. Not too many people. Somebody out there, though, has spent their life figuring out how to remove lint and developing products for it. And that person, that one or two people, will probably value this domain name quite a bit. So again, dropping the .com, we're putting in the keywords alone, and now we're finding 3,600 searches per month happening over there. And then let's go ahead and do the Control F trick. We do see things light up. We have portable lint remover near me. That's kind of a weird one for localization, which near me means they're looking for things, services around them. Scrolling down, I'm actually surprised by this data over here for the money. Nobody's paying to advertise for it. There's really no cost per click. So because there's no money, we are working in a theory. The theory is this domain name matters to people. The theory is there's 3,600 searches and somebody's going to want to reach that. When you are dealing in theory, be cautious. Okay, that means theory is another way of saying like an unproven imagination, an unproven delusion even. Like it's kind of like it might be really, really likely. In fact, you might be able to test it with science, and it is rather like we're rather confident. Like what is it? I'm trying to think of what they have. There's something that's still a theory that is that we all take as fact. That okay, I'll move on. But point being, anytime you don't have a direct connection between the keyword data and money and a business idea, that is where you probably need to let somebody that's more experienced deal with the domain name. Is this domain name worth something? Absolutely. I'm going to look at it, see that there's no money, see it's 3,600, like the keyword, know there's products and services related to it. And again, I'm probably going to fall in that just shy of $1,000 range. Why? Because I will spend money like that and hold on to a domain name for some hopeful future. Not because I actually think it's worth that, but because I think that it could be. And, well, I have a lot of money to sit around and invest in domain names. If I only had $1,000 to invest in domain names, I wouldn't be spending it on this domain name. No way. There's no way. I'd be looking at way better domain names than this, and domain names that I'm really passionate about. So this would be the budget of somebody that spends $100,000 a year on lint remover. Like that's the kind of person that's probably interested in this. Or if you run a dry cleaner, somebody that does a lot of laundry and stuff, and maybe you're interested in that reason. Just because it seems to be a good domain doesn't mean you need to buy it or bid on it. I probably won't bid on it. If I do, I may bid up to $1,000. I'm not excited about lint. Like that just sounds like, it sounds like a really boring domain name. Why would I ever want to buy it? Only because maybe somebody out there will benefit from it if I do. Cast your vote. I don't mind that domain name. $330 currently. This one is going to end Tuesday. And let's see here. Cast your vote. This one is that's a common phrase. Cast your vote. I could see this being a SaaS type thing. You build a way for people to vote online, not for like elections, but more for like popularity contests or silly little games. 1,000 searches for cast your vote. And down here under money, really no money happening. Actually, no money happening. So it could be a fun domain name to build out, but don't spend a lot of money on it. However, it is currently $330, which I'm out as of that number. Yeah, I'm out. Oxidize.com, maybe worth looking at. Shout It is one that will be ending around showtime. We talked about that last week. Medical exams, maybe. We are coming up on the last few minutes of the show, so I want to kind of just look through some domain names, see if we can find a fantastic top prospect. Top prospect. That's not bad. Click on that real quick. Just look at it. Yeah, I'll just put up clap back for your comments, everybody. And clap back is just saying 0 advertisers indicates there may be a market potential, but no actual market advertising dollars behind it. You'll have to turn the potential into actual market advertisers. So that is exactly right. What they're saying there, what clapback is saying is there's potential. There's potential for every single domain name out there. But that journey that you have to take the domain name from potential to actual, that is one hell of a journey that you're going to be on. That's really what it comes down to. Like, are you going to be passionate about the domain name to go from potential to actual? Maybe you are. But that's part of why I say you can't just buy on the data. You have to buy on who you are as a person and what you are about. That is going to be the safest way to buy, because that journey from potential to actual that's your life. Like, that's life, from potential to actual, from a dream to reality. Like, that's what that is. You need to make sure that your dream involves the domain name top prospect if you're going to buy it and develop it out, or lint remover. Like, there's not too many people out there that are like, oh, what do you want to, I had my daughter here to start the show. What do you want to do when you grow up, sweetie? Oh, I want to develop lintremover.com. You know, not too many dreams out there. So that journey from potential to actual, it's something you're going to actually have to do if you're going to benefit monetarily from a domain name. Make sure you want to do it. Topprospect.com, 270. Oh, I love seeing these keywords here. So I'm going to do the Control F trick, and you'll see over here what's highlighting. MLB top prospects, Yankees top prospects. Are there any NHL? Or so essentially what people are looking for is like who's recruiting who's on whose farm leagues and different sports and things. I think that's kind of fun. I was thinking of this as from a sales perspective of like who's the top prospects for for an industry or something. Some pretty good development. Like, it gets my imagination going. I wouldn't mind maybe doing a sports website. I'm not going to. I would probably steer it more towards a sales. That's because I work in marketing and sales. So no money really happening over there. Very little, no advertisers, very little cost per click. So this would be something, if you have a dream, it involves top prospects or a sport or an industry, maybe you go for it. Topprospects.com is going to end in 3 days from Monday, 4 days from today, $55 currently. I do like it, and that is going to get a add to my watch list. I doubt I'll bid on it though. Let me try to give an idea of my my value, because it sounds fun, and I'm at a place in my life where developing something that sounds fun, it sounds fun. And a lot of what I do is work. It's that whole journey from potential to actual that I'm always on. So for fun, I would probably put maybe a couple $100s on this domain name. I'm guessing it's going to go for more than that because it does touch sports, and sports are popular. Okay, I believe. Oh, here we go. Let's get this. Let's do this last one. So our last one we're going to do, gokartracing.freaking.com. That's a good domain name. I like this. This is going to be a big domain name at the end of the week. Gokartracing.com is going to be the final domain name. And so let me go back to what we talked about at the very top of the show, and that is, think about the GoDaddy valuation. Those domains at the top, they're saying worth tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And then we get down here to Go-Kart Racing. They're saying we're still $4,500, which, point being, the valuation, you can see that doesn't really matter. But what it's done is it's helped to bring some pretty good domain names for us to talk about here. That's the best way to look at it. And we are going to grab that domain name. Actually, I'll grab it from here. GoKartRacing.com ends, what is that? Ends Sunday, next Sunday. And when we were young, when I was younger, we would go to like Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, and we would do go-kart racing. So I know this is a thing. 11,900 searches per month. What? This is a good domain name. It's going to get better. This is going to be the perfect domain name to illustrate some of the points that we've talked about today and some of the points I wish I can illustrate every single week for you. So we're going to do the Control F. So here's one of the things I get to talk about with this one that I don't always get to talk about, and that is this right here. Go-kart racing near me, okay? Go-kart racing near me, 37,800 searches for go-kart racing near me. That means that if you want to put on go-kart racing a directory of go-kart racing places around you, near me, for example, you can do that. You can implement something I call the Local Legion 300. I need like a button that, Local Legion 300. The Local Legion 300 is the idea that you can get your first 300 customers just by finding one paying customer in each of the top 300 cities in the United States. There are more than 300 cities in the United States with a population of more than 100,000 people. You just need one of those companies to say, hey, I'll represent Cincinnati, or I'll represent this other city, and voila, now you have paying members, your first 300, $10, $20 a month. Yes, from potential to actual, you have a huge journey to go to make that happen. But I'll tell you what, go-kart racing sounds a heck of a lot better than lint removal. Am I right? Am I right? Yeah, I think so. So go-kart racing near me, 37,000. So on this domain name, 11,900 exact searches, but then acts potentially to target another 37,000 searches. Keep that in mind as we go down and look at more data, because that's what I was expecting. Go-kart racing, they spend their marketing money on little flyers and things at hotels. It's usually a kind of a last minute, like, hey, we're on vacation, let's go do go-kart racing. In fact, you might even have difficulty implementing the Local Legion 300 because not every place has go-kart racing. A decent amount do, though. I have to think, like probably the top 300 cities do. You'd have to research it some if you're going to go crazy on paying for this domain name. But here we go. There's only one person advertising. 51 cents per click. Like this is not meeting the numbers here. That means, based on the data that I'm seeing here, we have 1/10 of the advertisers I want to see paying 1/4 of what we want to see. So I would take, at most, pay 2.5% of $12,000. I want to try to do that math in my head, but for the love of goodness, I'm not going to be able to. Long story short, it's not probably going to be, my formula is not going to work because I like this domain name more than the money's going to say. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to go. I will pay at least $1,900 for this domain name. I'm not going to enter it in right now because there's a full week ahead. I want to wait till I'm back from vacation, and I'll get back from vacation and probably start bidding on this domain name. So gokartracing.com, the best one we've seen today. Yeah, and yeah, it would be fun. This is Chaz and I, that's a Coaster G there. Him and I have been on some go-kart tracks in our day. So he's who I am definitely referring to, and we used to do the go-kart stuff. I'm sure he still does all the time. Him and his brothers actually used to race some, like they'll hate me for saying the junior leagues of the NASCAR, like some of the non-NASCAR level, the amateur. I don't know, man. I'm sorry. Beat me up later. But they used to race. They used to race cars, not just go-karts, but like cars. So pretty cool stuff. And go-karts used to be part of our youth for sure. Exciting domain name to wrap it up. So let me summarize some of the domain names. GoKartRacing.com, going to be ending in on, it looks like Sunday the 12th. Sunday the 12th is when that's going to be ending. $35 currently. I expect this one to easily get well above $1,000, even though it is Go Kart Racing. 3 words, don't usually see them that high, but it's a good one, as we saw from the data. TopProspect.com, like this one as well, ends on February 9th. Currently $55. This one will probably go for a few $100 as well. Again, it's only worth that money if you're going to develop it or have a purpose for it. Maybe I would do something with it. Cast your vote. Sounds like a fun little tool for web surveys and things like that. LintRemover.com, you know, there's money to be made in boring things. Like that, as long as you're willing to just do the basic service, you can do something with this, I'm sure. $135 currently. Bandmusic.com sounds like a fun domain name. I want to be part of the auctions with that. Added to my watch list as well. Certainly will get that up above $600 personally. That ends on February 10th. As new, not really a big fan of the domain name, but it is one that we talked about. Ends in on February, it's next Sunday as well. And then filmcrew.com, a dang good domain name. This one's going to end on February 9th, currently $12.61. I'm not going to bid on that one, but hey, that's a fun domain name if you're into video and things like that for sure. So there you go. There we go. Well, I do appreciate you joining me today for this unusual domain to profit, where we've looked through the filters and setup that we use for expireddomains.net to search through hundreds of thousands of domain names to find the best opportunities for us to develop into businesses, to develop into things that bring value to the world, and we get rewarded for doing it. So yay, I love it. I will be on Twitter over the course of next week, a little less probably. I'm going to be joining some time with my family on a little bit of a well-needed vacation. Back to you next week, though, Monday, 3 p.m. Join me, Domain to Profit. I look forward to hanging out with you all then. Until then, make sure you've liked, make sure you subscribe, and also, if you want, go over to domaintoprofit.com. Make sure you're on our waiting or our mailing list. When you join there, you will be sent the Discord invite link, and that will get you onto our Discord server, which I, for some reason, thought I had open, but I do not have it open. And that Discord server is where you can talk to other people that are interested in not only buying domain names, but turning them into a revenue-generating source to generate something to help you go after your dreams, which is very much what I'm here for, to help you reach for your dreams using domain names and the path that I've walked prior to this. So yeah, good stuff. I hope you found value in it, and I hope I've earned your like and your subscription, and maybe even telling others to join us. I will see you next Monday, 3 p.m. Take care.